Welcome everyone to the special edition webinar. We have accumulated so many questions that we went, hey, let's do a 2-hour webinar. So, oh goodness, I'm going to mute, but Dr. Eddie has, he's going to talk about the window of tolerance to start with, and then we're going to do accumulated questions that haven't gotten answered in previous webinars. So I'm going to mute and have at it.
All right. Well, thank you, Tammy, and welcome everybody. It's really good to have you here. Like I said, 2 hours. I don't know who wants to listen to me for 2 hours, but I'm glad that you're here, and hopefully it can be worthwhile, and you'll get something out of it that will be able to help you in the recovery process. Again, as we said, we're going to be answering questions from our past shows that we didn't get a chance to. But please, in the Q&A, if you have questions now, put them in there. Okay, we do that. But I want to start off with the window of tolerance. Okay, what is the window of tolerance and why is it important for us when it comes to recovery? Well, I refer to this as your bandwidth. Okay, especially when I talk to men, I was like, okay, tell me about what is your bandwidth like? Okay, do you have a lot of bandwidth that you're able to, when she's grieving, to be able to stay there and to be curious and to ask questions and to, validate, or is your bandwidth very thin or small, which means that you're going to be more likely now to emotionally dysregulate yourself. So therefore, it's like we need to go take our break so that we can expand that bandwidth so we could be able to do that. Well, like what the window tolerance is. And it was originally developed by Dan Siegel. Dan Siegel is a very well-known psychologist who does a lot in the area of trauma and trauma work. And what the window of tolerance does, it describes the appropriate amount of emotional arousal that allows you to function in a healthy way. So therefore, you have this window, and in this window, that means whatever emotions are here, that you'll be okay. You can manage this. When the window starts to close, you don't have enough, as I said before, bandwidth to be able to deal with emotions, and therefore you become dysregulated. So when you're in your window of tolerance, and all of us have different windows of tolerance, our windows are different sizes. Some people have very big windows, okay? They have a lot of tolerance. Others, you know what? We have that little side view, kind of mirror tolerance. It's very small. So it's all different. And that's going to depend a lot on your upbringing. What kind of traumas have you incurred in the past? Neglects have you incurred? But anyway, your window of tolerance allows you to effectively be able to manage and cope your emotion so that therefore you stay stable. Now, during betrayal and with the trauma, your window has, narrowed. And what you need to do, see if you're able to expand it out for your own sake. Okay, I want to make sure I make this point very, very clear. All right. And again, I'm using women, even though I know there's men who are part of this program who've been betrayed. But for you ladies, I'm not telling you, oh, you need to expand your window to give him a break. That is not what I'm saying. And do not read it that way. All right. That is not my motive. My motive is for you to expand your window to give you more peace in your life because you deserve it. You deserve it. And that's why we need to work on this for your sake. Okay, so I want to make sure that's very, very clear. So if you have past trauma, that's definitely going to impact your ability to heal from your current betrayal. And that's what, Tammy, you're talking about the book that my wife and I are working on right now, going deeper for betrayed partners. healing through inner child work. It is about how your past trauma and neglect are impeding your ability to heal right now, and showing you by understanding that that's going to put you in a better place to empower you to be able to do the real work you need to be able to heal. So anyway, but past trauma is going to play a part in where your window is. And why? Because your past trauma, because of that, what happens is subconsciously, you're seeking out potential threats. You're looking for potential threat. We see a lot of this when, women go out with their partner, okay, who betrayed them, and partner could be doing very well, but it is the betrayed spouse whose eyes are darting all over, looking at different women. In fact, I was talking to a betrayed partner last week, and she was saying to me, she goes, I struggle so much to go out. She goes, because I think every woman is a threat. Every woman isn't a threat. In fact, well, probably all the women that are out there right now are not a threat, because I know from him, for him, he's in a really good spot. He is trying to he's keeping his focus on her. He's committed to her. He wants to make her feel safe. So I know these other women out there are not a threat, but for her, everybody's a threat. But that's because her window of tolerance when she goes out gets very narrow, actually almost shuts. It shuts. And she gotten to the point where she doesn't even want to go out. But hopefully we're going to see that change as she learns about this and continue to grow with it. So, but when you see those threats, as I said, the window of tolerance that's going to decrease, and you're going to struggle to actually maintain that emotional balance. And even minor things can wind up pushing you out of your window of tolerance. And now you go into a state where you're hyper aroused, which again, that means you're more agitated, you have more anxiety, you might even start to rage, whatever it is, or you're hypo aroused, which means that you are crashing. And it's like, I don't even want to do anything. I can't move. You're just feeling listless with everything. So it's going to go one way or another. But basically, when your window of tolerance shrinks, right, you can become reactive to perceived threat that may not be threats at all. They may not. And again, and that's really it's terrible that you're going through this emotional and mental pain because of your trauma. And what we want to do is want to see if we can get you to get that window open. So what I want to talk to you about for a few minutes is what can you do to keep that window open so that therefore you can maintain a more balanced homeostasis, level of emotion, despite the fact that you're still going through your betrayal trauma. Well, one exercise, what we call anchoring. And this exercise, what that does, it tries to keep you present in the moment, all right, and prevent you from drifting off, from focusing on what you see are perceived threat. So what you do is you're gonna focus on two or three things that are around you, one at a time. If you have a pet, maybe you even focus on your pet, whatever it is. You have plant, focus on plants, whatever. And then sit there and describe the object to yourself, but in depth. Look for details that you may not have noticed in the past before. I've done this exercise before with clients in my office where I take a box of tissues and I put it there. And, usually tissue boxes have different patterns and such around them. And I tell them, I go, look at that and start to really go in and look at detail. And, what happens, you look at a tissue and you think, oh, it's just a white tissue. It's not. There's all these shades of gray that are in there. There's many different things. You could actually see some of the texture if you get close enough. So anyway, we want to do that. We want to really zone in to a couple things one at a time. And while you're doing it, make sure that you are breathing very slowly with a very long exhale. Make sure you're breathing. We don't breathe very well. We go a long, long time without sucking in some air. To make sure you're doing that. And what are we doing right now? We're slowing everything down. What we're doing, slowing everything down. And therefore, we do that, you expand your window. And then when you're done, sit down and maybe journal or maybe call someone who you can trust so that maybe you could talk about what that perceived threat was, not is, was. Okay. And remember, again, what you feel, because that's what's going on here. When your windows start to close, it's more about what you feel, not always, but in some cases. But what you feel versus what is real, they're two very different things. So what's another strategy you can do? Another strategy is, and I've had some clients, I've had male clients who've done this, who have been betrayers and use this very successfully, and you could do it too. And that is compile a list of things. First, you're going to do a list of things that bring you pleasure. Okay, it might be reading the Bible. It might be a bowl of ice cream. It might be out in the garden. It could be just watching a sunset. What brings you peace? It could be up in the mountains, all of that. And then what I want you to do is create a collage. All right. Use photos, words. You get them from magazines, newspapers. You go on the internet, print stuff out, and just place those positive images all over this poster board. And then keep it somewhere where when you feel like your window is closing, you go somewhere, get it, go sit down somewhere, breathe, gotta breathe, and sit there and start just reviewing it and reviewing it. And go over it and think about it. Think about what it would be to be in that moment, to be there with that. But again, what we're trying to do, try and get the window to open. Okay. Another strategy is just being aware that you have a window. Okay. You have a window of tolerance. And if you want to use the bandwidth, if you want to use it that way. And so therefore, when you feel like you're going to become triggered, what you do is again, go back to the breathing. I'm doing that because I don't really breathe when I talk like this very well. So it feels good to stop and just breathe for a moment. And that what you do, tell yourself the threat that I'm feeling is not real. Okay? It's not real. Okay, my trauma that is trying to close the window of tolerance. Even if your husband has done something stupid, okay, it's probably not to the extent that what your fear is at that moment. So therefore, I want to try to take my window and open it. So I sit and I realize I have a window. I want to open that window. And I'm almost meditating in a way, focusing perhaps on something that, again, might bring me some joy. We could go to a very quiet place, sit with your breathing, and maybe even pull out the collage again to do that. And finally, and there are many different strategies you can use, okay? I could sit here for an hour just talking about those. But the final strategy I'm going to talk to you about is that you need to monitor what's going on in your window of tolerance. Okay, this is called nervous system mapping. Right, that's what the clinical name of it is. But 3 or 4 times a day, what we want to do is, and again, you can set an alert on your phone or on your watch. You're going to take a few minutes to do an evaluation. What state is my body and my mind in right now? This is critical because by doing this, you can keep that window open, because what happens, that window sometimes start to gradually close on us. If you can catch it, you'll be able to pop it open wider. So therefore, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to evaluate. Again, go somewhere quiet, sit. Am I breathing? My breathing rate too fast? Is it too low? Okay. Do I feel like I have energy? Do I feel fatigued? I did this the other day because I do these every once in a while to figure out how am I doing mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Um, and before I did it, maybe a couple hours before, I was like, oh wow, I feel like I have a lot of energy. It's like by the time I went and did this again, I felt very uh fatigued, okay, at that point. So is your mind, is it sharp or is it foggy? Do you feel distracted? Are you restless? Is your body tense? Are you clenching up? You know? And then after determining what's going on there with your body and your mind and how you may be struggling, instead of just trying to push through, which is what we do, because we're not aware, we just push through. And the more you push through, the worse it gets. So instead, what we want to do is ground ourselves, sit, feet on the floor, gentle breathing, remove the tension, drop everything, drop it. Let it like your mom. If I wasn't sitting in a chair, I'd fall right on the floor. And you want to do these check-ins on a consistent basis. And what you're going to do is you're going to start to notice perhaps there's some pattern of when the windows start to close. And perhaps maybe your windows start to close in the evening, okay, as the evening approaches. Or maybe it's during a time when your partner leaves the house. Maybe that's when that window starts to close. So you look for those patterns and you be prepared for them so that you can keep your window of tolerance open. So Tammy, that's all I got for you for today.
Good stuff. I use the bandwidth. I pay attention to that, but halts, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and I added stressed because like if I'm stressed, my bandwidth goes down. And I do pay attention if I'm, if I didn't sleep good the night before, if I'm running on fumes because I haven't eaten, all of those things, play a factor in it. I think, yes, there are childhood things that affect our window of tolerance. And then just like you said, there are situations that cause us to have narrower, windows as well. So just that, I think being really intentional, I pay attention if I'm overwhelmed and I own it. Like I find if I verbalize, I'm overwhelmed, like just saying that I go, oh, okay. I'm owning it. Restless, irritable, and discontent. I own it. And then I can make a choice. I love the 4-7-8 breathing. Right now I'm sitting here barefooted with my feet on the floor, and that helps me so much. And I pay attention. I've got one of those little office mats, and it's got a texture to it, and me paying attention to that, and the temperature sensation, like all of those things, like I'm connected to the ground, and just that helps me literally ground, having my feet on the floor. So
It does. It really does. It helps to be able to do that. I mean, I was thinking about it yesterday because we're going to start getting warm here
mhm.
soon, and I get into this period starting in May, going till like November, where I'm barefoot all the time. I just feel barefoot. And there's something about that again, you're right. I feel very grounded because I pick up on all the sensations,
Mhm.
including the little pebbles that pop
Yes,
my foot when I go outside too.
yes. I'm not as brave to be outside barefoot, but I live in rocky territory, so it's not going to be comfortable. And I was also like there was a visual that I've used a number of times too. Because you said the threat that I am feeling is not real, and I someone taught me that like imagine a babbling brook, and letting like letting it just run over, like rather than it getting stuck, it's
That's
like, okay,
imagery.
those.
That's using
Yes.
imagery to
Yeah, and it really helps me have it flow through and not get stuck.
Right.
I also think like you're talking about the awareness, and I always have like I will find my stomach is clenching, my shoulders, like there's something, and as soon as I am able to pay attention to those things, like like I'm a shallow breather, which is funny because I go run, so I must breathe enough to do that. But like in my regular breathing, I really believe I underbreathe, and I'm not taking the deep breaths. So being
You and I,
intentional about that.
you and I both talk very fast.
We
We talk
do.
pretty quick, and that's
We do.
part of the reason why we don't, we don't breathe that well.
Yes.
Take board
Yes.
breaks.
Yes. We do talk fast. So speaking of talking fast, we have lots of questions. So I'm going to just start reading these from the top of where I typed it out. So how do I trust my spouse who has betrayed me over 15 years if every time I try to discuss an event that may be triggering to me, he gets upset and defensive? The more I try to explain my feelings, I feel like I get more injured, the more vulnerable I become.
You do wind up becoming more injured if he is not going to be able to, um, again, validate what you're saying, to try to, answer the questions that you have. He's not making any attempt to make you feel safe. And so, therefore, to answer your question, how do I trust? You don't. You're not going to trust somebody who, men who go through recovery, okay, and really are committed to recovery. They learn various techniques, especially when it comes to helping their spouse to be able to go through grief period. And many men, they pick up those, you know, skills that we teach them, and they implement them fairly well. Nobody's perfect. There's not a single guy. I'm not perfect. Okay, it's not going to happen, but they do it fairly well. What you're describing here is somebody who, could you say, every time, who's not even making the effort to do it. He's not making an effort from here because he gets upset and gets defensive the more that you try to explain your emotion. So, for whatever reason, and my guess would be, just a guess, all right, he have a lot of hidden resentments that he haven't spoken about and gotten out. Now, you might be sitting there saying, "Are you kidding me? He got resentment? What the hell is he doing with resentments? I'm the one who's been." I understand you've been hurt, but that doesn't mean there haven't been things that have happened in the relationship over the years that he doesn't feel hurt or have resentments about. Maybe some of his resentments aren't even valid. I don't know. But I would imagine that's probably part of this. Or there's the shame factor that he just can't break away from that shame. And that's where he goes and he crashes. So no, this is, you're not going to be able to trust him. And he's going to have to learn that he's going to have to grow up and that he's going to have to start to take those techniques that he's learned, if he's learned them, and be able to put them in practice if he wants to have a healthy relationship with you.
Yeah, and with this one, it didn't say if he actually has stopped the problematic behavior, if he's actually trying to be on a recovery
Oh,
path.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I would
I
hope
went to
so.
the shame thing too, but like it's not justification for not doing those things. It's like we have to go, yes, I feel shame, and what can I choose to do differently? But I'm with Dr. Eddie. It's like people earn our trust, and they're not trustworthy, if they've been betraying us. So why would we continue to trust them? So
There's no justification for this, Tammy, none whatsoever. If you feel that level of remorse for what the pain that you have caused, it's almost like, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm going to do whatever is needed within limitation to help you. I'm going to do it to help you. And here, this is the basics. This is the gimme stuff. Don't get defensive. Okay. Don't get upset. See her pain. not feel your pain, the basic stuff. So,
Okay, number 2. My SA husband, supposedly sober for 9 months, continues to lash out, demean, stonewall, ignore, and dismiss me most times when I articulate my feelings or thoughts around his betrayal. No full therapeutic disclosure so far. Every time he uses those behaviors, he goes into deep shame spiral afterwards, and it's almost impossible for him to come out of it. So usually I am the one approaching him afterwards because I feel so much compassion for his struggle. I literally see his little boy in him. Would it be better for me to just leave him in his shame as I realize it is his stuff and not be available for him until I see over a long period of time that he is focusing on the work of his family of origin stuff, which will hopefully help him with his shame?
so what would Dr. Phil say? How's that working for you?
I know. That's what I was like. I typed these up, so that they'd be in order. And this one I had lots of energy behind while I was typing it up. I was like, well,
Right.
how
It's like
manipulative of him, of like, oh, I'll do this and
you,
then you'll come and comfort me.
yeah, yeah, right. Excellent, Tammy. That's he is manipulating you.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
like, is she coming?
Yeah.
Is she coming? Is she gonna come? You have to break this cycle. You're not doing yourself a favor, you're not doing him a favor. What he needs to do is to be able to go do the work he has to do. As you said, looking, you see that little boy, you see that hurt, that pain. I'm so happy you see that. That shows how observant you are. But it's not doing you any good right now. Instead, you have to see a man who's acting like a child. That's what you have to see. And therefore, that man needs to say, hey, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm going to go do my work so that I can come back and help her. All right. This is lashing out, demeaning, stonewalling, ignoring, dismissing you. No, can't have it. Can't have it. He has to grow up. You need boundaries. I'd be talking to your therapist. What are the boundaries you're going to put in place? I would not be chasing him any longer.
I'm with you. Okay, my essay thinks that after close to 3 years that I should be okay with his constant slips, and he wants me to be okay with him describing his triggers and the way he relapses. He still hides a lot and lies. I feel like 3 years of my life were wasted, and I'm very sad and upset. What advice do you have?
Well, I guess it becomes the idea, okay, so it's been 3 years. He has constant, I don't know what constant slips are. I mean, we have slips, we have relapses. I mean, at one point I never thought there are no slips. They're all relapses. But I've come to the understanding that I think you could have a slip. You start going down a path, and you go, "Ooh, stop." Okay. If that's what's happening, if he goes down, let's say he's looking at sports on the internet, and he gets down to the bottom and says, "Oh, you should see her now," and he clicks on it and then looks and then say, "Oh no, no, I got to be out." All right, that's happening again occasionally, and he's able to figure it out. Why did I do that? And in most cases, the reason he does it is because he's drained mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and his brain is screaming for stimulation. And that's what he's looking for. If he's coming to you and saying, hey, you know what, this morning I was looking and I clicked on this thing, and now I understand why I did it. And these are the safeguards I'm putting in place to be able to prevent it from happening again. In fact, I'm not going on the internet for another month until I can get myself in that good. Then you know what? I'm okay. But if it's just, oh, I did this, oh, I did that, yeah, I did that, that tells me the commitment isn't as strong if it needs to be. And so therefore, I'm having him go back, speaking with his counselor to say, what kind of boundaries are we putting up for you that are going to keep you from having these flips? Okay, maybe he had to go back to putting the software on his devices. Maybe you need to go back to meetings that he may no longer be going to. But he has to go back and start putting some of the pillars back in to recovery that maybe have slipped away over the course of those 3 years.
Or he may never have had them. I mean, like me, this
Me,
has been a kind of a constant pattern. Like this is when what you're doing isn't enough. You need more. And this would be 90 12-step meetings in 90 days, seeing your therapist, maybe twice a week for a while to get a solid, like this is foundational things. So the sex addiction 101, not the inner child and all of those things, which are great, but if you're constantly slipping, that's just like I've got periods of abstinence for a while, but you can't ever really get into recovery because it changes everything. And if you're constantly dipping back into that dopamine, like there's no, and I hear for you, I've wasted 3 years. And so healthy boundaries for you, or what do you need to do to take care of you, regardless of what he's doing or not doing?
he needs a reset. You have to
Yes,
reset.
we have a residential treatment program for guys like him. We
Yeah,
literally, for guys
yeah.
like him. So, okay, my as a betrayed partner, could you give a good example of how to bring up this topic with my SA husband? My husband is not confident in himself and his interactions with me and in our relationship, though he has other people and in different roles, such as work or a parent. He is mother and mesh man and still reacts as a child when his mom shows up. I'm not sure if this is related to his confidence when he engages in intimate conversations with me.
Oh,
So,
it is very much related to the way he engages with you. Because again, we go back to that enmeshment. He never had a sense of confidence in that relationship with his mom. Okay, his mom was the one who was driving it. So he was probably very passive in it and just followed whatever the lead was. And that's what it sounds like you're getting here also, that he's kind of not just sitting back and allowing you to drive all of this because there's that fear, and that's what the main thing here is, fear that, oh, I'm going to be in trouble or I'm going to disappoint. So let me just kind of kick back and I will let you drive it, which again have to be extremely frustrating and disappointing for you. He has to go and do some real, attachment work. And there's a program, Seeking Integrity. Troy Love, I think, has his attachment program.
yes.
And I think that would be a perfect place for him to go to understand, okay, why does he react that way to you? And it goes back to mom. But more importantly, how can he now start reacting differently? Because again, once he's fully aware of it and embraces it and accepts it, doesn't mean he has to continue to engage in it. And that's what we're hoping happens.
So the next one is a comment, but it was a good one. So I'm going to read this. Not a question, but a comment on that about living, looking in the past. I think about driving. If we were always to look in the rear view mirror, we would definitely crash and lose sight of where we are going. It is healthy and safe to glance in the rear view mirror, but not healthy or safe to continue to view the past and not look forward. Thank you, Dr. Eddie. So I just
Yes,
wanted
I
to share.
mean that is so true. Again, we are. If you're gonna stay in the path, you guys are gonna continue to stumble, you're gonna continue to fall, you're gonna continue to just, get sucked down and down that mountain, and you're not gonna get where you need to be. There has to be a balance that we're also moving forward somehow while also, being able not to put this too far behind us. And we really shouldn't be behind it. It should be over here. I could see it. But again, this is only if the betrayer is doing their work. Okay, if they're not doing their work, then I'm not advocating for anyone who's been betrayed to say, yeah, let's start moving forward. No, we can't do that. So
So the next question is, is SA therapy the right direction if it's more about what drives his coexisting compulsive behaviors? Not sure if it's as much SA with co-occurring or coexisting addictions. Betrayed partner, 1 year separated after husband with numerous unhealthy compulsive behaviors. One was 10-year on off with affair partner in our 36-year marriage. I left to be in a safe environment for healing. I'm in a good place. He is sober and has been mindful and taken accountability, but stuck in which direction?
Okay, so what she's asking here is continuing to do sex addiction therapy. Is that the right direction for his coexisting compulsive behavior? Now, she says that he is sober and he's been mindful. So therefore he is sounds like he's doing a lot of the right thing. It sounds to me that no, we don't want to be just in the basic sex addiction therapy. We want to go deeper here, okay? To understand why does he what drives those compulsive behaviors that he has. Two, what has him stuck at the moment? Okay, why can he not move beyond all of that? I'm glad to see that you are in a good place and that you've done the right thing to put yourself in a very safe environment. That's really helpful. Sometimes you have to do that to do it. So I think for him, he has to go to next level and really start doing some of that inner child work. Again, to answer the why question, why do I think, feel, and do the things I do?
This also feels fairly early in, in any kind of recovery work process. I'm not 100% sure, yes. And we talk, so at Seeking Integrity, we really do work holistically. We've had guys that have co-occurring substance. You absolutely have to stop the substances in order to do any of the deeper work. But, we've had food, gaming, gambling. I mean, like lots of different co-occurring, compulsive behaviors. And so, yes, we're looking holistically, stop the problematic behaviors, address the underlying issues, just like you were saying. So,
Mhm.
so it depends. If there's substances, then, addressing that as the top level, and then you can look at things. But it gets, you can't compartmentalize, and too many people do. Like they go off to substance programs. Oh, if I stop the substances, then I'm going to stop all of these other
Right.
things. No, you're going to probably lean into them more because you're dysregulated and you're looking for this dopamine to,
That's
help
right.
you navigate and cope. So
Yep.
it really does require addressing the underlying issues. So
Mhm.
but yeah, I'm thrilled that you're taking care of you. And it's his journey. So I hope he's asking his qualified professional, working with his, 12-step sponsors, whatever, whatever peer support he's doing, to help navigate all of those, those aspects and safety, the 10-year on and off with the affair partner. I mean, like healthy boundaries for him. It's like, what has he, what barriers has he put up so he doesn't just, slip back into the on again with the affair partner.
Mm. And we have a Going Deeper program
Hmm.
workshop that will be starting June 17th, I believe, if
It's
I'm not
June. I wouldn't have
mistaken.
remembered which date.
Yeah, so that's coming up, and that may be something he
Yes.
wants to go to the website and take a look at and register for. And there he'll be able to do the work with other men, and again, a really good bonding situation. So,
After I read this question, I'll go find the link for that.
all right.
Okay. So, my husband has no diagnosis, has neurodiverse traits, and doesn't seem to get the recovery process, doesn't stick to any recovery plan. How can this be addressed? As a senior citizen, been in recovery for 10 years and taken out of the doghouse work groups, wondering if it would be helpful for going deeper, why men struggle to love, etc.
Okay. So I'm supposed to be very open and honest, right, Tammy,
Yes,
about
please.
what I do. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't want to write anybody off. 10 years, 10 years, and he's done some stuff. Okay. He doesn't stick to a recovery plan. There are some guys who just don't get it, and they never will. I would going deeper help him? I can't tell you yes or no. Neurodivergent traits They're very difficult to deal with. Okay, very difficult to deal with. Um, and it may not even be the fact that he doesn't want to. It may be more the fact that he just doesn't, he can't. All right. For whatever neurological, psychological problem that it won't break through. I'm not saying he gives up, but I'm just saying that, and I would hope that, he's sober, but I don't know. We don't know what that says here. Um, I don't, when I see cases like you're describing to me right now, I just don't have a lot of hope. And I just hate when people just start continuing to toss money at things. You know what I would do? I would wind up, he doesn't have a diagnosis, he doesn't have, I would go and have an assessment done. I'd have a neuro assessment done. Find out what we're dealing with here. That's where I would invest the money. And then that's going to give you a better understanding of, okay, what are the barriers that are standing in his way? And what are some of the things that may be able to be done to help him? But that's where I would start. I don't know, Tammy, what do you think?
I agree. And we've had clients that, yes, having a diagnosis, because then you go, okay, we all have limitations. We all have things that we need to do in order to navigate life. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, this is an area where I struggle. What coping strategies will help? He struggles to continue through, and I'm like, like you talked earlier, like have alarms on your phone where they go off and it reminds you. Like you can set all of these things up so that you have the tools that you need in order to be able to do the next right thing in recovery. So I don't write people off, but I also am looking at like I don't feel like he has had enough of the right tools or figured out a plan to be successful. I love, yes, get a qualified, somebody who actually knows this and gets addiction, so that you get the right, diagnosis. But
Do you
we have
have
had guys
any,
that have come. Yeah.
do you have any resources that you might be able to
We
point
do
them in the
in
right
Los
direction?
Angeles because they actually work,
Oh,
with
okay.
us. But otherwise, many qualified professionals have someone that they can refer to that gets
Right,
addiction and these issues.
right.
So you may get a qualified referral, for you in your area. They have to be licensed in your area.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So my husband has gone deeper, and yes, his parents played a lot in his emotional neglect, etc. But later they became part of his deception. They approved and encouraged his acting out with his affair partner. How do you deal with this with multiple layers of betrayal? This one I also
Uh,
had a lot of energy around when I was
oh,
typing
well,
it yesterday.
why don't you jump in to start?
Like these are so painful, and this
Oh,
happens. I feel like it's the multiple betrayals because yes, this happens like if it's a friend of yours, a family member, like when there's those kind of it's bad enough it happens in Vegas kind of thing, but when it's there's more people, all deceiving you and betraying you, it is complicated. My thought when I was typing this was healthy boundaries for me, those would not be safe people. I would not be interacting with
I,
them. I would take care of me.
I'm with you. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm with Tammy 100%. How do you, how will you ever be able to trust your in-laws again? If they sit there and they condone that type of behavior? I mean, it's not just that they're allowing their son to engage in something that, not morally sound, but it's also what are they saying about you? And again, break my heart if I sit here and I read this. This is, awful. Although I don't know why I'm so shocked. I've seen this stuff play out
Yeah.
before and even worse. But yeah, Tammy's right. You need to figure out what are your boundaries, and they have to somehow, if they want back into your world, they are going to have to put forth some amazing amends for you. And then you're going to have to let them slowly try to see if they'll keep those amends and be able to help you earn back some of their trust. But yeah, I'm definitely putting up boundaries, or I'm running in a different direction.
And understand those people, his parents are very broken people. Like,
Oh yeah.
like who does that? So they're very broken. His brokenness came out of that whole system. So
Mhm.
you can hope that they, see the light and want to make amends. But I would be taking care of me and not planning on, Thanksgiving together, this fall soon. So
No,
yeah.
no.
Okay. Here's another one. How do you let go of all the ghosts of his prostitutes and porn stars that seem ready to pollute the room?
All right. So I'm gonna start backwards and I'm gonna work my way forward.
Okay.
Those prostitutes and porn stars are not in the room. Okay. They're not there. And what you've done is you have just allowed them to take hold of your mind. And what it is a fear. There's a fear that you have. I don't know what that fear is. Maybe the fear is this idea that I'm not good enough as some of these women. Maybe I'm not as pretty as some of these women. Maybe I'm not as energetic or creative as somebody. There's fears that you have that, but he desires them more so than he desires me. Part of the way to get rid of them is by looking and seeing and evaluating his commitment to making you feel unique, special. All right. That's part of it. What can he do? And therefore, you got to give him an opportunity to do that. And in many cases, we don't want to give him that opportunity. But in this case, I think you have to. You have to be able, because again, that's if that's where his mind is. If his mindset is, oh my gosh, I have total remorse for what I've done. This has been awful. I didn't realize how much it was, how devastating it would be, and that it is now attacked your self-worth. No, you are special to me. You are the only woman I want. You're the only woman I desire. You need to have that opportunity to be able to show you that. But at the same time, you have to be working again with your therapist to be able to grieve the betrayal of what he has done. But ultimately, if those ghosts stay in the room, it's because you have allowed them to stay in the room. You've given up your power. You've yielded power. We should not yield our power. We should not. Those women can't hurt you. Okay. He hurt you. He's what your focus should be on. And that means if he's doing what he has to do, or if he's not doing what he has to do. And if he's doing it, are we giving him, again, just opening that window of tolerance just a little bit to let him come in to show and demonstrate that, hey, I can love you differently. That's, I gotta tell you, Tammy, if one thing I see and I see often, I see the guy who's different, he's made the changes. He's not again, not perfect, but he's like, I just want the opportunity to show her I can love her differently. And they'll get it. They won't be able to have it. She won't let them in to do it because they allow their fear to dominate. And that's where, again, the work has to be done of I grieve what you've done to me. I accept it happened. I have to accept it. I can't try to deny it. It happened. Don't like it. What are you going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And what are you going to do to make me feel that I am the most important thing in your world? So,
Yeah, and you're right on. It's action. It's not because like we hear lots of times the lip service, but you're saying show it's I want to show you. And so that is not flowers and candy. That is I'm taking the actions that I need so that I am not on that same path. So
right.
Okay, the next one, there's from a trade partner. Do you recommend the workbook Facing Heartbreak?
I have not read that book. I've not read
I
it.
probably have a copy of it up here. I think it's one of those, if it's helpful for you, I'll pull it out in a second after I read the next question. But
Okay.
I think I can't remember if it has codependent language. I actually, it's a longer story. I won't go into it. But so I think it's always take what you need and leave the rest.
Yeah.
Try it. There's
Yeah,
homework
right.
exercises in it. So yeah,
But
yeah.
I would try it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next one, what does it mean when your spouse has been through by his counselor to have but like this one was confusing, but I think it's like the counselor told the husband that he has an intimacy disorder. He doesn't think he's an SA at this time. What does it mean for his recovery work? He is new to counseling. He's been going for about 8 weeks, and this was just last month. So I'm just in recovery here for a few weeks. He is talking about his issues. He doesn't equate sex with love. So this is really complicated because he doesn't equate sex with love, and and then intimacy disorder, like all addiction is an intimacy disorder. So
Right.
yeah,
Right, it is.
yeah,
It'd be
yeah,
interesting. It'd be interesting to understand why his therapist doesn't think that he has a sexual addiction. I assume he gave him an assessment. If he hadn't given him an assessment, he probably should. Um, but so let's say he doesn't. Let's say this is a guy who he looks at porn once a month, or maybe had one emotional affair. Not that I'm minimizing it, I'm not at all. But that's all he's really done. Let's say he doesn't have a sex addiction. Let's say he really is that we're trying, he's hunting for emotional connection. Then he has to be doing that kind of work. All right, more so than anything else. But I think he got to make sure that there is not a sexual addiction. I think you really have to be sure that's not the case before you start shifting them into a different type of intimacy disorder work. All right, we don't want to do that, but that may be where you need to go. And I think Tammy just put a sex addiction assessment in the chat.
yeah. It's just the really quick. It's on our homepage, and there's a separate one for co-occurring substances. But this is like 25 questions, and I often say, send, count your yes answers. Email me the score, because someone who scores a 5 is very different than someone who scores a 15, and
Yeah.
the resources that would be optimal. But he's going to a therapist. There's something going on with your relationship. So what the label is of interest, but it's like if there's problematic behaviors, if it's like, oh, I just haven't, like, I hear this, I have an intimacy disorder, or I'm a love addict. Lots of people would rather be a love addict. It sounds so much nicer than some of the other
But
things.
you got the same problems, the same
It,
issue.
yes, and so
Uh,
you know
but
go ahead.
I use the HBI 19 assessment. That's the one I use. So,
And if there's a
this
CSAT train, like they have a comprehensive sexual dependency
that's
inventory,
right.
it's
They
600
have one
questions.
also.
And yes,
Yeah,
so,
that
and you
is.
did not identify if, what level, but I'll tell you, a generalist therapist that doesn't specialize in this area, they are less likely to be able to identify. Now, there's a little bit of a catch because, people who work in this area are a little bit prone to overdiagnose. So but good therapists are not just looking at assessments or just listening to what the client is saying. We know clients lie, addicts lie. So
Mhm.
like they're looking at things. You're digging in. It's not like, oh, come in and 5 minutes later I'm going to tell you what you are.
Right. I don't want to put a label on my client. You have an intimacy disorder, you have an addictive brain, you have a compulsive disorder, and most likely you are emotionally undeveloped. And that's where I keep it right there. So,
Okay, so the next one. I'm the sex addict. How do I rebuild my wife's image to my coworkers, siblings, and adult daughters? In my addiction, I complained and criticized her to these people. I need to rebuild her image with these people so that she feels comfortable in their presence. Should I inform these people of my infidelities, porn, and affair partners? This was another one that broke my heart.
Oh man. Okay. So what do I do here with my coworkers, my siblings, and my adult daughters? Um, and I think you got to start with your adult daughters and your siblings. And I think yes, with those folks, you're going to sit down and you're going to tell them what you did. And therefore, so they can better understand what your wife has been through. And therefore, it was sometimes wondering, my gosh, she's acting crazy. What the hell's wrong with mom? What's wrong with your wife? Okay. No, I think they need to know what happened. So therefore, because this is not fair to her. And I've seen this numerous times. I'm sure you've seen it too, Tammy, right? It's like protecting the guy who acted out, but it comes at a cost to the betrayed partner because they got to put this smiling, happy face on whenever they're around people. Okay, because and although they are hurting inside, and sometimes guess what? That facade breaks in the midst of an event or something like that, and then people are looking and saying, "What the hell is wrong with her?" But they don't know what's going on. So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, "Look, you know what? This is the pain I caused her. And then I added more pain by complaining and criticizing. She is not like this. And I really would like to see if we can start to mend these relationships. Okay, by you seeing exactly if you're going to look at somebody and say, who has the problem? It's me. That's where I would go.
Yes, and my only caveat was like no child wants to know about their parents' sex life. So I think it's fair to say I have caused your mother or my wife, if it's a stepmom, emotional pain. I have not acted in integrity. I have been emotionally immature. I have shifted blame to her. It's all on me. I'm working on bettering myself, and I'm taking full responsibility for this. But like there are, and there's a book for adult children of sex addicts. Dr. Ken Adams wrote that, and
Hmm.
there's a podcast with Dr. Rob. So it is challenging. They don't need to know the gory details. And same with your
No, they
coworkers. It's like,
don't.
yeah, I was a jerk, and like, I now realize what my issues were, and am working on them. But I was the jerk.
Yeah, but I fully agree with you. When we disclose something like that, we don't go into details. It is more along the lines of, you know what, and you can't say that, you know what, I broke her heart. Have done some things that have really caused her a lot of great pain. You could stay in that. And if
Mhm.
somebody said, well, what did you do? And then just to say, look, you know what, it's something that we would rather keep
Yeah. Yeah, the
among
details don't
ourselves.
matter. I just,
Right, they don't matter.
I did not act in my integrity, and so yes, there's
Yeah,
lots of
but I
ways
think
to share that.
you need to make that situation right.
Yes, yes, I agree. Because yeah, yes, you've caused her extra hurt by
Oh, yeah.
ostracizing her. So, okay, a couple more, and then we're gonna get to the new ones, which we have a bunch of. Okay, I'm the partner of an essay, and my husband currently does recovery work, but only this one annoyed me too. Will only do it right in front of me, including sitting on the couch doing 12-step twice a week and working on his workbook right after I get home from work, but watches movies and plays games on his phone while I'm gone. Should I be concerned? I'm gonna jump in. If he's doing 12-step and you are like, that is such a violation of 12-step. So that's where I'm going with this is like, like everybody else in the meeting is vulnerable because like if he's in his office and you've got headphones and you are not seeing or hearing anything, okay. But I was like, if he's sitting on the couch doing his 12-step and you're hearing the meeting, such a violation of what you
Yeah, I
see here,
thought
who you hear. Yeah,
okay, I thought she said he was doing his well, she doesn't make it clear, but the
I know,
workbook,
but
I
that's
thought
where
she
I
was
went with that.
right.
I want to make
But
sure.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. You're right. You can't have any of that with that. Um, it's interesting. So yes, I would be a bit concerned because this is like showboating. Like, oh,
Yes.
look at me, look how I'm doing. I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
then
Look, mom. Like, it's almost like, look,
yeah,
mom, I'm a good
look,
boy.
Mom, that's right. Now, I would not be surprised if his therapist may have said, hey, make sure when you do your recovery work, you're doing it in front of her. Okay,
Mm,
I've heard that before
really?
because,
Wow,
oh
I'm
yeah,
not.
I've heard it. And that's not it. He should be doing recovery work because he knows he needs to do recovery work. He needs to do it for a certain amount of time every week so that he's getting the insight that he needs. And it should be whenever he, had the time to be able to do it. Um, Watching movies and playing a game on the phone while you're gone. I mean, would you be annoyed if he played a game on his phone while you were there? Again, the only problem with the playing the games on the phone right now, you're trying to break out of an addiction, and those games are addicting.
And there's porn even in games, like
Oh
not
yeah,
not like
some.
solitaire, but
No,
but a
some.
lot of the games have have porn like not
Yeah,
porn, so
right, right. So yeah, I'd be a little concerned about all that.
I'm a lot of concern. Okay, so the next one, how do we find resources for excellent grief counseling? I have been struggling with this as well. So
Oh,
this is one of those, yeah, email me because I know grief
right.
counselors in
Yeah.
your location. So Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and let me know where you're located. We've got some online, as well, but like there's some really good people that, can help you through the process. Other thoughts on that? Okay. A last one, and then we're going to get to the new ones. Okay. SA in recovery for 8 months and sober for 2 years with one relapse. I've learned to stay in the pain field. I love when they start using the words that you've been using with my person. However, is there a way to navigate painful anniversaries or painful moments? How can I show up for her ahead of those triggers instead of waiting for them to happen? I love this. Is it better to address it directly? Something like, hey, I realize this is coming up on a year of whatever event. This must be hard for you. I know. Like, can you
This
believe it? I was like,
this
oh my gosh.
this is a guy who's getting it. He's getting it. Okay. They're all excellent questions. Yes, you want to be proactive. Yes, you want to acknowledge the dates are coming up. Okay, you want to say, hey, this is happening. I know it's got to be really hard for you. The thing about you have the anniversary for D-Day, you have the anniversary of, maybe other things that have occurred with that stuff. You have to bring those up and talk. What would you like, or how you want to handle this? And because all betray partners are different. Now, when you're dealing with things like wedding anniversaries and you're dealing with birthdays and things like that, many times what you're going to get is, don't give me anything. Don't do anything. Do something. Nothing elaborate. Nothing elaborate. Do something. Okay? And I'll leave it at that. But good
Yeah.
stuff. This is really good. I love this.
And that I assume he is thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not waiting for the whatever to happen. It's like, I'm thinking ahead of this. Okay. So now we're to the new ones. And I think this first one is one of the ones we've already answered. So I'll read it again, but I don't think we need to add to it.
Okay.
What about when his parents, were part of the
All
betrayal?
right.
They were not allowed, but encouraged his acting out at their house. This multiple betrayal. His affair partner was also our married neighbor. Like
Oh
that is
man.
it's like this is the yes, healthy boundaries for you. I hope you have found safety. I mean, that this is the almost incestuous. I hate to say that, but
Oh,
like when it's again, it's not Vegas. It's like in your community, and you're going to see these people, and you're going to see them at the grocery store, etc. So
yeah.
okay, so then the next one is what? Oh, sorry. As the betrayed partner, I feel like my sex life has been taken from me. How do I still meet my needs without guilt? There is healthy masturbation. So,
Okay, yes, your sex life had been taken from you. It had been stolen. Uh, you know, if I don't sit here and tell people whether, something is healthy for them or unhealthy for them on like masturbation. I mean, up to individuals. If you feel there's a need to do that occasionally, because that's gonna help you relieve some stress or whatever, I'm not the, the sex police over here, so I don't really have an answer for you. I don't think it would be awful if you did it occasionally. Uh, and I'm sorry to be so vague with it, but I just don't really. Maybe Tammy has a better answer for that.
I can, like, we
Okay.
talk about this with partners and with our retreat. It's like, yes, but, and I think partners often lose their sense of their own body. And so reclaiming your body, can be, a really helpful. And so I think, it's honoring who you are and what you need, but understanding, it's your body, not your partner's. Unfortunately, many partners also feel like that line has been crossed. So I think it's important to understand, all aspects of your body and honor it. So,
We go.
okay.
We got the source.
Can you define abstinence in pre-disclosure process for SAPA? What behaviors violate terms of abstinence or definition of sobriety recovery behavior? Do we define them ourselves, or are they generally known? This is a
Yeah.
great question, and I know there's so much. It's like with substances, like, sobriety is like abstinence. So, but this is so much more complicated.
This is more complicated, and usually what we do, one of the recommendations that occurred with many people is the first 90 days after disclosure, we're trying to just be completely abstinent of any type of sexual behaviors. Because what we're trying to do, again, remember we're talking about an addictive brain, and we're trying to quiet everything down so that, can reset itself, recalibrate. It's not healed at that point in any stretch of the imagination, but we do that. Does this mean that couples can't, kiss? They can't hug? They can't, touch each other? Again, but I also think we have to be, we can't put people in a cookie cutter mold. All right. So I don't use 90 days with everybody. I don't. When a woman comes in and she is just so devastated, and the guy has this lengthy, you know, list of grievances. Yeah, for him, I'm putting him on 90 days because I want him to really, he needs to understand he doesn't need this. He wants it, but he doesn't need it in that sense. But I think also couples should be, have some range. Now, I'll say this to those who've been betrayed. If you think, oh, I'm having sex with him because this way then he'll love me and want me again, that is a bad message. It is the wrong thing to do. Okay, we should not be doing that. All you're doing is playing into the addiction itself. So, I don't know, Tammy, what are your
Well,
thoughts?
or the other, I'm going to have sex with him because then he won't go act out. Like
Yeah,
it's the safety measure. It's not even just
right.
that he'll love me or show me. It's also that this is going to be the security of, like, then
Hmm.
no,
Right.
Dr. Rob often says, why would you have sex with somebody you don't trust? And so one of the things with formal therapeutic disclosure is you're building a foundation of trust. And so
Mhm.
it can be that, that is, it is, for each of you. I know what Dr. Rob has talked about, like some clients, depending on this situation, like 90 days just blows their mind. So he's like, can you be abstinent until we meet next week? And then it's like, and then another week. And like, then pretty soon some time is, but it just gives you an opportunity to, have things kind of simmer down. But
Mhm.
kind of going back to the last question too, of like, it's your body as a betrayed partner, like, you know, uh, is this person trustworthy with your body? Okay. Is there always childhood trauma in the past? Could addiction start by something that happened later in life, like a horrible divorce, etc.?
Yeah, it doesn't, you don't have to have trauma always have a child. You could also have trauma within the teen years, and as you bring in this horrible divorce, it brings to mind a case where we look back, and again, this was actually a woman who had a sex addiction, and she lived a really very good childhood. There wasn't much we could find there. However, her parents were doing a very good job of hiding the dysfunction in their marriage from her and her sister. And they were clueless. And when she was about 13, boom, they sprung it upon her. We're getting to boy. And she was just crushed because it's like, wait a second, this fairy tale life that I have, it's been nothing but an illusion. So how do I tell what's real and what's fake? And so that caused her a lot of issues in trying to discern and a lot of self-doubt. It took her down the road of first anxiousness and then depression and then drug use, and it just spiraled out of control. So yes, it can be later. I've not seen anything where somebody goes through childhood, teen years, become an adult, they haven't had nothing, and then something catastrophic happens, and then they get caught in addiction. I just haven't seen that.
I,
Am I,
I haven't either. Yeah.
yeah, am I gonna say it doesn't exist? No, I'm not gonna say that, but it's not the norm.
I think the seeds of it are planted, and it may be like that case you were presenting. Dr. Enid Gray wrote "Neglect the Silent Abuser." It can be our family always has to look perfect, and so
Right,
we're not allowed to have emotions, so then there's a horrible divorce, and the train goes off the rails because like, oh my gosh, I have all of these emotional feelings, and we always have to look perfect to
right.
the rest of the world. So I would always think that there's something back there, neglect, grief, loss, abandonment, trauma, abuse, there's something, even if it's like it looked really good from the outside. And lots of guys come to treatment and they think, oh, I didn't have any trauma. And we start unpacking it and you go,
Oh,
yeah, that actually kind of is. So
we see that so often. It's incredible, isn't it?
yes. Okay, so a window of tolerance. At what point do we trace that feeling or thoughts back to a trauma to attempt to get rid of the frequency of those triggers?
We're
Another
always
great
doing, I
question.
mean, we should always
Yeah,
be doing
yeah.
that. I mean, that's just part of the overall recovery for
Mhm.
both parties. We want to understand again why. Why do I think, feel, and act the way I do? Especially act. What's leading this behavior for me? Or why is it that these types of thoughts are just so intrusive for me? So it should be on an ongoing basis until you get to a point where they are more desensitized. That again doesn't mean they're not gonna bother you, but when they do, again, that window won't shut completely. It'll stay partially open, therefore giving you more free bandwidth to be able to kind of open it even wider.
Yeah, and I think we've done webinars on journaling. Lots of people find that
Oh,
journaling is super helpful because then you start to see some of the patterns, so even in the moment, if you go, like, I feel like I have no bandwidth, okay, journaling, I'm going to just journal about what I'm feeling right now. And then, if that happens a few times, and you go, look, this pattern is showing up, so I can identify some of those things. And this kind of ties into the next question. What is a good way to build a wider bandwidth? You shared some very good,
that,
options, that in the lecture, which will be posted on our website, but
yeah,
anything else to add?
right. I would no, I would go back and look at those. There was anchoring where again I'm focused on several things that are in the room. And I mean really going very in depth to try to look and notice, what the patterns and such are. Again, keeping me grounded. We talked about the idea of the collage talk about the collage, cut out things that bring you pleasure. Write down a list of things that bring you pleasure, and then cut out words and pictures and create a collage. So therefore, when the window starts to shut or you're feeling that, you can open it up again by looking at these things. We talked about the idea of being aware that it's happening and therefore doing an assessment on your body, how especially your body and your mind and where I'm at. So those were just a few, but I'd go back at the very beginning of this video and look at that again.
Yeah, one of the things that I've used a lot for me too is, a gratitude list, because if I'm grateful, like I can't be in chaos and like I just can't. They are mutually
Right.
exclusive.
That's
And
somewhat like the
yeah,
collage too with
yes,
that,
it
but go
is.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I can have a little list. I may be out and
No,
about, and like I just
no.
need to do a quick gratitude list in my collages at home, you know.
Mhm.
So now you can have a picture of your collage on your phone and pull that up. Like honestly, like it's figure out what works for you. The serenity prayer was my mantra. Like I would say that over and over again, and that calming would come to me, that I have no control over anything else, just me and my actions, and that helped me to get grounded and have, okay, now I can kind of look at the world and not have that negative lens or the little tiny bandwidth. Okay. So then the next one, my essay husband also has ADHD. Just recently started taking Strattera. He says he feels generally less impulsive and angry. However, his window of tolerance still seems to change from bigger to smaller depending on how the winds blow. Any thoughts on the connection between ADHD and the techniques you described today?
Again, what may be happening here isn't so much ADHD, although that could be playing part of that. Again, what's going on here is his inability to regulate his emotions. That's the bigger problem. And he has to learn how to slow everything down, which again, ADHD gonna be part of that problem. Especially if you have the AD part. Okay, not ADD. If you have the hyperactive part of it, that make it a little difficult for him. But therefore, that's where he really needs to learn how to be more mindful. I'm doing a lot of meditation. If I'm him, I'm meditating every day for about 15, 20 minutes, so he can learn to be still, which will help with all of these. I'm also doing something like yoga. You and him start taking yoga classes. If you can't afford to take yoga classes, lots of them on YouTube. Hook it up to the television, look at them, and I'd be doing those at least 3, 4 times a week, which again, that stillness is really, really important.
Walking is also very
Huh?
regulating. The EMDR technique came from walking because it's bilateral, and
Mhm.
so it helps calm things down as well. So yes, finding techniques. We had a client, and this is a while back, at Seeking Integrity, and lots of them have co-occurring ADHD. That there's a correlation for addicts across whatever behaviors. But he was like, I have ADHD. I was like, yeah, then we just have to work extra hard at, like this doesn't give us a pass. We, kind of like the neurodiverse, we have to find techniques that will help us navigate recovery. And we all have phones, and putting reminders in my phone of like, oh, it's time to meditate for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like, oh, it's time to go for whatever it is. I have ADHD. Not a big surprise. I have notes all over my, desk, and then I go through and clean them up and make sure I haven't missed anything. So I found techniques that work for me so that I
Right.
can show up and do what I need to do. Okay, my essay has a lot of shame and will often discuss my absolute worst and rare reactions in his therapy or with our kids. Oh my gosh, which feels like an attack on me, as if to say, she's as bad as I am, when my behaviors are most often reactions to his betrayal. Nobody knows. And I'm actually normally quite regulated under the circumstances. It hurts me that he seems to need to diminish me with others so that they will think I am unstable, when in reality, I should be unstable this soon after discovery with zero disclosure and transparency.
See, this is shame on him. Shame on him. See, this is the idea because again, nobody knows what he's done to her. And all they see is, ooh, what's going on with this lady? What the heck's wrong? What's wrong with mom? And instead of being a man, say, you know what? Your mother's upset and she's hurt. She has reason to be so. And it's because of me and my action. So please, she's trying to get through this. I'd like you to give her grace and understand that she is hurting right now. And again, but it's not her fault. It is mine. Okay. So when you get upset by her being upset, come to me and be upset with me, not her. Okay. But he doesn't have the Stones. Almost went to Jersey. Didn't. Didn't go back there. Almost to do that. Okay. And so now he's causing her more distress here. And so for you, because obviously he wants to continue to be immature and he doesn't want to grow up. And you could go, if he's not listening now, you can go and you could play this thing for him and actually have him reach out to me so I could talk to him more about this because I'd love to have a very calm conversation about it because this is wrong. I mean, this is so, so wrong. And with that, he needs to be able to man up and not because you said that it makes me feel like it's an attack on me. It is an attack on you. It is what you're feeling is fully justified. It's an attack on you. And what he's doing, if he again for his shame, he's trying to divert everything over here. Don't nobody look at me. I'm fine, right? Look at me, good dad. Look at me, good, whoever sees this, her. She's the crazy lady. So anyway, so for you, where are your boundary with this? The next time you talk to our kids about me and you make me out to be the bad one, you are going to blank, 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 whatever those are. Talk to your therapist and come up with boundaries. He has to understand that this is unacceptable behavior. I'm done.
I, I'm, yes, and I hate this, and I know this happens a lot, and it is, it is his behaviors are crazy making, and yes, so the more you can do mindfulness and grounding, but also get some healthy boundaries for you. And most therapists, you providing collateral information of like, yeah, so if he's, like you could, not every session, but you coming in and saying, here's what happened. And yes, and this, and then I'm getting attacked and this is not okay. So you and therapists need to work on, on these actions. But all of this is he does not have enough help clearly to to start even making things shift. I hope he's at least abstinent, but just not doing the problematic behaviors as abstinence. Clearly he's not made any traction in
No,
change, which is the recovery path. So
no, no.
okay, so next question: what is a slip or relapse for a PA?
Okay, so for a porn addict, a relapse is he goes back and looks at porn, or or even highly suggestive, images. For example, he's out there, he's looking at women in bikinis. I think he's relapsing. Okay, he's objectifying. He's a voyeur. Right, that's what's happening there. There's very little leeway that you can give to somebody who's struggling with a porn addiction. If he goes online, he starts reading erotica. That's a relapse. That's not a slip. Okay. Now, if your swimsuit catalog comes home and it's on the counter and he opens it up and then shuts it and says, I can't be looking at this, then I can give him maybe a slip for that. But knowingly goes to something then I think you're dealing mostly with relapses.
So, so inner circle behavior, what's in the inner circle, if it crosses that boundary, that's and we've talked about this, in that a slip is, I did this, I would come to you and I tell you, I did my inner circle behavior, and I've got an appointment scheduled tomorrow, an emergency appointment scheduled with my therapist. I'm going to a 12-step meeting, in a half an hour. Like, here's what I'm doing about it, but I'm talking about it. A relapse is, I'm keeping it hidden. I'm not owning it. I'm living in denial. And the 24-hour rule, and some people go, it should be shorter. Yeah, ideally, it's like, an hour ago I just looked at that magazine, and that wasn't a good thing, whatever.
Right.
That takes
But you
time,
but
but
you can have a relapse and still go and tell somebody. Okay, they do that.
yeah,
They do it.
yeah, I
It's
mean,
not the most common thing.
no, like, a
Not the
slip
most
is
common.
like, if I've crossed that boundary and I immediately recognize it, and I'm changing
Immediately
things. Yeah.
recognize it.
Yeah, that is like, then we go, okay, that was a slip. A relapse is like, I did that 3 weeks ago, and now, like, my spouse found out, and now, oh yeah, like, yeah, like, you're not
Or
okay.
or go
And
on a
and
big
what does it matter? Like, at some point you go, there has been a crossover, and so what is your person doing
right.
to, at a higher level to address it, so that doesn't keep being the pattern, like we heard earlier, the 3 years of kind of constant inner
Mhm.
circle behaviors. So,
Yep.
okay, so the next question, and it's a two-parter. So, I'm increasingly anxious about the upcoming 1-year anniversary of D-Day, when one of his women reached out to me to confess. Oh, I then learned he had been keeping secret relationships with several women over 10 years. It hit hard. How do I prepare for the upcoming date, the date that haunts me? And P.S. To clarify, husband is doing the work. He is putting in tons of effort to help me and help us. I'm still frightened sometimes. Of course
That
you are.
that's really good. I'm glad to see that he's doing that. I'm actually going to turn, because Tammy deals so much more with betrayed women. I'm going to hand this over to you. What do you think should you do about that upcoming date?
Like, the tricky thing is, it's the date, but it's also the before and the after. Like, people go, "Oh, I made it through the date," and then the day after, they're still
Oh
going,
yeah.
"Oh, yeah, yeah, yes." So I would have my circle of people that
Hmm.
I would plan for, grounding things, for me, and joyful things. And yes, it's a date, and it's just a date. It's kind of like, anything else, it's another day. And so, the more you're able to go, yes, there's going to be some emotions around this, and because here's the flip side of this: that was D-Day, and it was really bad, and look at what he's doing that's different. Like, this is a good, this is a good situation, but it's only been a year. Like, it often takes a year and a half or more for people to really be able to trust, and you're already seeing that he's doing good things and wanting to heal the relationship. So there's a lot of hope, but absolutely honor where you're at, journal about it, get support, attend things, but also do something that will be joyful for you in that, so that you're attaching good things to the date as well. But the shoulders are both a little challenging too. So,
Good stuff. Good stuff.
okay, so next one, Dr. Eddie, is, my husband continued to lie about small things throughout the entire first year of sobriety. I only found out because he failed 2 polygraphs. None of the lies were about sexual sobriety. He remained totally sexually sober for the year, but I'm not sure how to feel about the continual lies. Does this mean he wasn't actually putting in the effort and didn't actually view what he had done to me all those years as being as horrible as it was?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. What it means is that he can be a compulsive liar, he can be a pathological liar, he could be um, there's like 8 different types of liars that are out there. And what that is, again, that's the compulsive disorder that just plays in. And it's probably something he's been doing all his life. And that it's just a natural reaction for him to do. He has to work on that compulsiveness to learn to be able to bring that down, and therefore, by first reducing his anxiety. to lower the compulsiveness, and therefore you get the lying part that start to diminish. I believe that the lying is like the last thing that goes. I mean, it's just that aftermath that still lingers there because they still are dealing with a lot of anxiety. Now their anxiety is very different, though. Their anxiety is about, oh my gosh, are we going to be okay? Is she going to be okay? What today going to bring for me? Am I going to be? Is it going to be a day where she's going to be, very attacking, or is it going to be a day where she's very sad? How am I going to react to this? How do I not say the right thing? How do I maybe not say anything? And there's just so many things that go through their head, and there comes the compulsion. But no, that doesn't mean that he didn't put in the effort. It seems like he did. And it doesn't mean that, he's looking at what he did to you and not seeing it as horrible.
The lying is challenging, and the guys that come to treatment, the spouses typically report that the acting out behavior was bad, but the lying and it's about
Worse.
everything. Dr. Rob's book, Out of the Doghouse, he uses an example that the husband lied about taking out the trash, and that was the tipping point for the
Yeah.
spouse. She's like, if you're lying to me about the trash, how can I trust you on anything else? And
Right.
so but we talk often, for addicts to like take a couple seconds, before you have that automatic response that is probably a lie, think through. There's also, I think it's really important, for addicts to identify, well, liars to identify what am I seeking? There's a benefit to lying, and it's like, I'm afraid of what your reaction is. Whatever it is, there's something. And yes, it's kicking the can down the road because you're going to be extra mad when you discover the lies. But in that moment, there's something. And so having the ability to go, I know that this is what I'm hoping for if I lie now, but it's all about being intentional, and we can learn, and
Uh,
all of us in addiction are liars.
you have to slow everything down.
Yes. My essay gets up and leaves or accuses me of pain seeking while I am upset and trying to have a discussion. I feel doubly betrayed, and it sets me back a great deal in my healing. I know this is him running away from his own emotions, but how do I bring him to empathy rather than it always being about me coddling his emotions, shame that drove him to unhealthy behaviors? I feel like we're focusing so much on how bad he feels about his behavior, but not addressing how much this robbed me in my life, hopes,
Right.
dreams.
It is very similar to the other one that we
Yeah.
spoke about here, where again he's allowing his emotion to trump yours. And
Hmm.
what I think needs to be done here is again, I think the two of you need to get in front of a therapist together, who could therefore again somebody very well trained on both sides of the dealing with the betrayed spouse as well as with the betrayer, so that he can learn the importance of being able to be there with you, and how ultimately he may have to deal with pain short term with this, but that is ultimately going to pay dividends for you and your healing and for the relationship overall. And then he needs to understand what are the techniques, what are the things that he has to do. So therefore, if you say something that is erroneous, for him not to just jump in and say, no, that's not right. Instead, I can understand, validate, I can understand why you feel like that. It makes perfect sense. However, if I can let you know what really happening here. So you shouldn't continue to chase him though and coddling him. That's just playing into it. Again, if he feels like, oh, well, because again, he's looking at it, he's thinking, oh, this is the way it works. Well, I'll sit here with her. When it gets too hot, run away. And then she'll come and she'll make nicey nice with me, and then we'll be okay until the next time. You're not going to get anywhere. This is just a loop, a bad, bad loop. And you're going to reach a point at some point where not want to, you're going to want not to chase them to coddle them. What to chase them so you can whack them in the head with a frying pan. All right. So instead, go sit in front of a therapist learn the skill set that is needed, especially for him, to understand one, what would be the benefit, two, this is the way we go about doing it.
I was caught up on the, I'm trying to bring him to empathy.
Yeah.
You can't change anybody yet. Now you can share with him empathy would look like you doing these things
Right.
and
Right.
like being really specific, because otherwise empathy is kind of this, I don't even know what that means, kind of, so what is it you're looking for? I think it's important to have those conversations not in the heat of the moment. Like just say, we get into these patterns, you call it the circle, and I say it's the negative two step. We're doing, you do this, I do this, you do this, you do. It's a awful dance, and so when you're not doing that dance, to go, we keep getting into this pattern, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you're willing to go, hey, let's try something different. Are you willing to try something different with me? Scheduling, let's schedule a time to talk. We're going to talk about these things, and it's short, 20 minutes. Like, so it's not like going on and on, but it's also scheduled. So he can call a sponsor before, he can call a sponsor afterwards. It's bookended. Like, there's so many techniques that you can learn to do differently. But otherwise, yeah, these patterns, just like, like you'll keep doing them over and over and over again. So, and he won't change. Okay, my narcissistic, abusive, unfaithful spouse has had a heart change, as Dr. Eddie says. He really is a different person. In the years I cut him off from my life, and for the first time, I focused on me, and he started to see his own character. He's building a relationship with God. Even though we are starting and building a healthy relation, I sometimes feel bad that I promised myself to never return to him, but my heart decided different. Have you heard of this? Am I disrespecting myself even though he is wonderful to me?
I've heard of it. I've seen it. Um, you are not disrespecting yourself. There is self-doubt. Why would there not be self-doubt? A narcissistic, abusive, unfaithful spouse. Obviously, this man has not treated you kindly through much of your marriage. Okay? Praise God that he has changed his heart, that he is now seeing the error of his ways, that he wants to be a different man. And praise God for you for the fact that you're looking at this now and saying, you know what? I'm willing to take a chance and give him another another chance. But that doesn't mean you're not going to have these moments where you're going to be like, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing here? Because again, the last thing you want to do is suffer from the stupid girl syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was out of my life, and now I brought him back in, and he did this to me again. You're going to have those. I would just continue to work through that with your therapist on a regular basis. But I think we are starting to rebuild a healthy relationship, and that's what needed. And I say, I pray to God that that continues, that you guys go down that pathway. I hope you find the happiness and love that you should have had the entire relationship. But yeah, don't get derailed by that. All right, come back on and continue. As long as you continue to see him being consistent in what he's doing, I say go for it.
Well, and like I feel like you were saying no to the narcissistic, abusive, unfaithful spouse, but this is a different person. So he's showing up differently. This isn't you, reneging on what you said. You're going like, this is somebody that I could have a relationship with. So exploring that with your healthy boundaries. It sounds like you're taking good care of yourself. It's, to me, that's like very different. I wouldn't want to be with the
This is
abusive addict either.
Like, this is the end game, okay? This is where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to go back to reconciliation. All right, you've been able to find that in your heart to do it. So
Yeah, yeah.
again,
Be kind to
congratulations
yourself.
to you.
Yeah. Okay. My husband is intimacy avoidant. His therapist has found no evidence of porn addiction, but there has been perhaps non-compulsive porn use that, upon discovery, created betrayal trauma for me, particularly because he disappeared the day after he shared the porn use. He may also have a gaming screen addiction. He is seeing a CSAT and has been since last September, but doesn't want to disclose his recovery plan to me, which seems to be based on codependency and perhaps trauma from reactive abuse from my reactions to what has happened. I have PTSD from my husband's actions and also from his family, since there was no protection from him when his brother threatened to kill me. Oh my gosh, this is not the only trauma that has affected me with his family. He has pushed back when I have set boundaries to keep our kids away from the unsafe family members, and that is causing a lot of issues. I have a therapist who specializes in betrayal trauma, along with a therapist for EMDR. Where should I start?
Wow, there's a lot here. There's an awful lot here. I'm going to tell you where I start. I'm saying, you know what? I want a joint meeting. I want a joint session. I want him and his therapist and me and my therapist together so that we can sit and we can start talking about some of these issues. And that's where I would go because, again, there are things like, especially the idea that you're worried about the kids. He's not honoring your boundaries. Okay. If he's not respecting your boundaries, then how can you sit here and say, okay, you know what? He's going to respect the fact that I don't want him looking at porn, right? Even though they're saying he may not have a porn addiction, although there's something else there. Or yet the gaming screen addiction. Yeah, he probably, again, emotionally undeveloped, and he needs to learn how to grow up in that way. But that's where I'm going. I think you need to be able to sit so that both therapists have a very clear understanding of the various pain points each of you have. And therefore now they can get together and say, okay, what is the plan here to come together? I don't understand about not disclosing a recovery plan, although it does say in there that it seems that he is convinced his therapist that you are going to want to micromanage that plan. And so therefore they're saying we're not going to let you see it, which I have not heard of before. So, but that's where I would go. I'd say, you know what, we need to have at least let's do one session. Let's see how it goes, and maybe we do several others. And maybe we do it once every 2 weeks, once a month, just to figure out, okay, what's the game plan? How do I get to see what the recovery plan is for him? Because if I don't have it, then what are you looking for? All right. What are their issues that they have on the side that they're thinking that your PTSD is somehow derailing him or undermining him? And also, what do you do to protect your kid from being put in an environment that makes you feel uncomfortable? So again, that's my suggestion.
Yeah, and like it feels like there's a lot of enmeshment with
Oh,
his family, like and physically unsafe, so healthy boundaries for you, and make sure that your therapist has helped you create them, your internal boundaries, and as well as the external boundaries, and that you're able to articulate them and why those are necessary. With that, I think a conjoint session for the four of you would be really helpful. So okay, next one. I am 3 years and 9 months out from first D day and still have not gone oh my gosh, through formal therapeutic disclosure. My husband has not acted out since disclosure. It must be from discovery. Kind of like white knuckling life, and has still been in first order change. He is now tapping his toes into real recovery. How soon should I expect to have formal therapeutic disclosure that will not be too soon because of his recovery?
so is she saying that he just started to do his recovery work?
It sounds
Is
like
that
he has dragged his feet and is
he's
now
doing it?
starting
Okay.
to do that. And
Okay.
but I also like I don't hear, but I'm hoping you're both working with qualified professionals,
Yes.
because this is not a do-it-yourself job. So, you know,
Yeah, so I think no, yes, please, we do not want to do this ourselves. So yeah, so if he's working with a therapist, again, I think this is for you to be able to say, hey, I want to meet with your therapist too, which again, I don't think should be any problem. Whether you meet alone or you meet together, I would probably meet together so that you could talk about your concern to say, hey, you know what? It's been a long time and I really need this disclosure. Can you give me an idea of how much time you're going to have in working with him up front to be able to, you know, deliver this for me. Okay. Instead of me sitting here saying, oh, you should have a disclosure by this point. I can't tell you that. Because again, I'm not in the trenches with him. But that's where I would go. I would say I would really like to discuss this issue. So that way his therapist at least knows and understands what he or she should, that a disclosure for you is critical, but we also do want to give him the time. He needs that time to be able to go through process. Because the last thing we want is for him not to include something because he doesn't remember it. So we want to give him a chance to be able to outline it and put it, but it shouldn't be something that they have to drag their feet for 6 months to get something to you.
And I think we're with your qualified professional, like Dr. Eddie said about the last one, and making sure that there's releases so that they can talk and go, what is the plan so that we make sure that this is being attended to, quickly? Because, I
I
mean, you're pushing 4 years. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Really. So,
I had a case where it was 5 years. It was almost
wow.
5 years. Hadn't had a full disclosure. Started working with me. All right. I actually brought her in for a session. Said, because she goes, I need that full disclosure. I go, okay, you know what? Give us 4 weeks, just 4 weeks,
Yeah.
because we're getting the damn thing done. It's been
Yeah.
too long. And
Yeah.
what I had him, and I put him on a timeline of saying, this is what I want. This is how I need it. We went back and forth. We were able to do it, and it went well. And she felt so much better after that. So,
I agree. Okay. Can you speak to the guy who lacks willingness and that we can choose to stay or go?
well, the guy who lacks willingness, I mean, I have to understand why. What is that lack of willingness about? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want to be married anymore. Maybe he never wanted to be married. Maybe he's afraid of what it's going to be like moving forward, with that. So you got to remember, addicts are runners. We run. We don't sit with emotional distress, emotional pain. And so therefore, for him, I'm not going to sit here with this. I can't sit with this emotional distress. So therefore it comes across as looks like he's unwilling to do anything. So we have to understand more about what are the motivators for him or the lack of motivators that he's feeling. So once again, okay, I feel like I'm a broken record right now, but I think you need to get in front of his therapist if he has one. If he doesn't have one, then it has to be okay. Yeah, see, I need to know more. Like, have you been in front of a therapist? Have you stayed? Have you not stayed? What does lack of willingness mean? So I can't sit there and tell you, oh, stay, go. I need to understand more about, what is actually happening, the dynamic of it. But if he hasn't been in therapy at all and he has no desire to be in therapy, I think you got your answer. Okay. If you've been hit or miss in it, then I think it's like sitting down with the therapist to say, okay, what do you think going on here?
So, and I have this little note because somebody said in a webinar before, and I wrote it down. In order to have the choice to stay, you have to know that you can leave. And so I think it's always important to understand, your options. And we do hear of the people who, for a variety of reasons, don't don't feel they actually can leave. Even then, there's ways to set up healthy boundaries so that within this framework, within the context of the household or whatever, I'm creating safety for myself. We need safety, and if it's an environment that is not, then how do we create that? Separate rooms, sharing the kitchen. You have it from this time to this time, and whatever it is. It's complicated, but it's still doable. So. Okay, so this is more of a comment. I'm betrayed by my family of origin, all of them. They never cared for me and abandoned me. And I'm at the age when I'm realizing grieving that I never had. What a deep, deep pain. And I'm decided that I want nothing anymore from them. I just want to detach from all this toxic and pains and all I never had. So not only, it's not only, the significant other relationship that is a betrayal. And that's
Oh,
true.
right. It
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
true. I have had several cases like this where, the woman, their family of origin was just a nightmare and totally abandoned. And one, you're doing the right thing. I know it's very hard. Like you said, it's a deep, deep pain. However, cannot allow that to define who you are. Okay. And you can't continue to drag it around like weight behind you. You got to let it go. And it sounds that's exactly what you're doing. So, I applaud you
Yes.
for your efforts on this. And I hope that you're going to find peace as you move forward.
Yeah. Proud of you for choosing you.
I wish more betrayed partners would do things like that at times.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband and I are 9 months post discovery. He has been sober and working his recovery plan. We each have weekly appointments with CSATs and come together for group sessions periodically. He seems to be following all the elements of his 3-circle plan, including attending 12-step meetings. While he attends them, he says he gets nothing out of them, cannot relate to others in the meetings, and only makes him feel depressed and angry after attending them. His CSAT is getting him involved in therapy group, but I believe that it is meant to be in addition to 12 steps. Our CSATs have been unable to explain to us the necessity of 12 steps. He is embracing the other elements of recovery plan. Is recovery possible without 12-step meetings? Yes.
Is recovery possible? Yes, it is possible. It does, however, 12 steps serves a really strong purpose. Okay. It gives you an overall comprehensive, look at your life and what has gone on and the struggles that you have faced, and more importantly, what is going to be happening as you move along. So, with that said, all right, I think he's not putting him in a therapy. He's got to be in a group. So if he's in a therapy group, fine. That's great. But perhaps he has to find another 12-step program or find a sponsor who will walk him through 12 steps one-on-one. But I will tell you this, when I first started all this, I wasn't a big 12-step guy. I didn't really, but I've really come to understand in the last maybe 5 years that it really is beneficial. Is it even critical? No, but it is very beneficial. And maybe we kick the can down the road a little bit, let them be in the therapy group, let them see what that's like, but then at some point, bring them back to that 12 step. Tammy, you know a lot about 12 step. What do you say?
I so my colleague Scott and I did a kind of a primer on 12-step meetings for the February 7th. It's posted on the same place that this webinar is being posted on our website. But we talked about, and there are people that go to meetings and they're always looking at how I'm different rather than if I go to any meeting and I'm going, how can I connect with these people? So what I hear is somebody who's going like, yeah, I'm going to check it off of the thing, but I'm absolutely going to dig my heels in and not learn. So in that webinar, we talked about with S groups, like there's so many. With alcohol, it's AA. You go to AA. With all of with the S groups, there's so many opportunities. I happen to be a board member for SCA, Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, but there's a bunch of them, and finding different ones. They all have a personality, and so like when I travel, I happen to be out of town, and I happen to to run into somebody at a 12-step meeting, and that's great. But if I didn't know anybody there, it's still all good because I still have kindred spirits. And I settle into a meeting and they start reading, whatever they're reading at that particular meeting. And I just go, talk about breathing. I get grounded and settle in. So they're free. There's a bunch of them. They have different personalities. Can you get into recovery? Yes, but it really does take group. Just doing therapy, it is not enough. So we change in community. We learn to have empathy for other people because we go, oh yeah, me too. I get it. Shame reduction,
Mhm.
all of those things.
Right.
So yeah. So I would encourage that. I
Okay.
I am going to take pictures because we have another meeting that starts at the top of the hour, and I'm going to do the same thing because we did really good on getting through the other ones. And guess
We
what? We have a
still
whole
got
bunch.
23 left.
I know. So I'm going to do this, and
Okay.
at some point we're going to end up doing yet another long one. But
Oh,
no, we're thrilled everybody
I
that
am.
that
I
you
am.
show up.
Thank you.
So yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, we
this
hit
is
over
good
a
stuff.
hundred, had over 100 people in the room at one point. That
Yes,
was great.
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you for
We
being
we
here.
are we are incredibly grateful. I'm doing the best I can to take pictures. And thank you. Yes, thank you all. So, yeah, and there's so many good ones. That's like I want to go. Oh, I want to answer
I
that. I want to answer
know,
that. But
I
yeah,
know, I
yeah,
know. We're
yeah.
I
So
did real fast if I can, real fast. As you guys know, the book is being developed for the betrayed partner. Um, I'm thinking what I may be doing is taking like a chapter and sending it out to some people who may be interested in reading one of the chapters of it. And also maybe requesting potential case studies. I have a ton of them, but maybe
yes,
looking for one or two more. So
yeah.
something to think about as we move forward. Okay.
Yes, yes, but thank you for sharing the chapters with me. I'm devouring them as I get them. So
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
All
it.
right,
All
bye.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.